Awesome. And hey, everyone, welcome back to the AI Pulse podcast. Today, we've got a really cool episode, learning from the pros, lessons from our MVP partners in how you can really leverage intelligent document processing to really change the way that customers and you yourself can experience how you interact with organizations. So I'm actually joined, as always, by my co-host, Marlene. And as I said, we're exploring how you can scale intelligent document processing solutions. And we've got two of our amazing MVP partners, Deepak and Collins. I'll turn it over to them real quickly to do an introduction. And let's start with Deepak first.
Hi, everyone. My name is Deepak Goyal. I am Partner Innovations and Engagement Consultant here at ABBYY. I'm here at ABBYY since last 2 years. It's been a wonderful journey, and I've been associated with IDP since last 1 decade. So that's all from my side. Over to you, Collins.
Yeah, my name is Colin Sarmento, and I am the Director of Product, Intelligent Data Capture and Process Automation at Initium SoftWorks. I've been working with intelligent document processing, intelligent data capture, and process automation for over a decade. I've been working with the ABBYY products for over a decade. So I'm very excited to join you today.
Okay, so I wasn't lying when I said we were bringing on the pros, because you guys bring a big punch of experience, so that's great. Thank you guys for joining us today.
Yeah, I was just about to say that learning from the pros is really the right title for the session. But as we probably have listeners who are not familiar with the topic, so for those in our audience who might not or might be new to intelligent document processing, how would you describe what IDP really is and why it matters to businesses today? Maybe Collins, you want to start?
Yeah, I can take that one. A lot of companies are currently, even still today, manually keying data from documents and images into downstream systems. And, for a long time, that has not been needed anymore. You don't need to be doing that manually. And what intelligent document processing does is it allows you to automate that, to take these documents, extract them, ingest the documents from multiple sources, determine what document type it is, and then extract key metadata from those documents and pass those downstream. So essentially, it's just the automated way of getting data off of documents, whether they're digital or paper documents, and into a system where action can be taken on them.
On top of that, what Colin mentioned very rightly, that it is extracting the data, pinpointed data. But before that, when I meet a lot of people, there is a certain misconception that what is OCR and what is IDP. They are misinterpreting IDP with OCR. So OCR is, I would say, when we are just converting an image to text. But IDP is much more than that. IDP is what is required. I can mimic a human being. You put a document in front of me. I'm not only extracting the data, I am classifying it in my mind. What kind of document is that? By reading the document. And then I know what I need to extract from that. And for today's industry, I would say the pattern is changing, because in last 5 years, what I have observed, that IDP is not a luxury anymore. It's a necessity of every process. Because we see that whether process is a small or a large scale, IDP is about compliance, customer satisfaction. If I am my process, whether I am an insurance provider, whether I am in banking, whether I am in A to B processing, if I am able to deliver something which would have taken 24 hours in few minutes, because IDP never sleeps, that is a great compliance upbringing. It's not only about saving the back-end job hours.
Yeah, awesome. Very good explanations of what it is and what it can do. And maybe let's go a little bit in the past or exploring your journey with IDP, your personal journeys. So when did you, for example, first realize that IDP is really, it's not only a technical tool, but it's really something that can shift business outcomes, like really has an impact?
Yeah, my journey in, I won't say intelligent document processing, but document processing actually started a bit earlier. So probably about 15 years ago, I was working in after hours, just trying to make some extra money at a records conversion team. So they were it was a room full of 50 people sitting there scanning in documents and manually keying in data. And that was very tedious, very time consuming, and was not familiar with data capture, was somewhat familiar with OCR. We did some intelligent indexing, but after moving to a different company, I saw intelligent document processing in action for the first time, and it completely blew my mind. After watching 50 people manually keying in data day after day, why weren't they using this technology? It didn't make much sense, but it was like magic, like I said. And Kofax was the first product that I used mostly for AP automation, but then I came across ABBYY's Invoice Accelerator, and from there learned about Flexi Capture for invoices with machine learning. And from that point on, I knew IDP was the future, and we've been all in with ABBYY ever since. Throughout my career, I've had a chance to work on everything from invoice automation to full-scale mortgage and equipment finance document processing. Yep.
It's interesting that you mentioned mortgages, because that was one of the eye-opening moments for me when I started working around intelligent document processing. Like, similar to you, I already had experience with OCR, optical character recognition, the machine learning technology, because it's also actually considered AI depending on who you ask. It's old AI versus new AI. But anyway, that's a whole different topic, not for today. But nonetheless, it was actually when I applied for my first mortgage and the sheer volume of documents that was involved that I was like, this is simply impossible because the technology exists. And then for me, the interesting bit was when I was talking to the bank director that was going through this whole process with me of explaining, this is where you have to sign, this is the form that you have to fill in. These are other documents from other companies, your utility bills, salary slips, all of that stuff that you have to provide us. And then we will ship it to the head branch, and then we will process it. And that was just like, I cannot believe that this still exists, because this was only about 10 years ago. Now, when I told him about what we actually do here at ABBYY, specifically around the technology, his mind was blown. And the funny thing is that still happens to this day. So that's why I'm so excited about doing this episode with you guys, to really explain to the larger audience exactly what is possible with this technology and what a big impact it can have on the actual customer experience that they have every single day with all of the organizations that they work with. Because believe it or not, 90% of business processes, so that's almost every single touch point with a customer as well, involves a document. So that's a lot of volume right there.
Yeah, it's amazing to see IDP accurately process 100+ page mortgage package and break it out into, there could be over 250 different document types in that it has to figure out which one it is. When clients see that, it really clicks. This can be used for anything.
So Deepak, when organizations first explore IDP, what are some of the misconceptions that you sometimes see? We've highlighted a bit about what it can actually mean when organizations do it right. But what if they have the wrong kind of framing in terms of their thinking of what's possible?
See, the biggest misconception which I have seen, because I tell you, when I started working with IDP, before that I was a Python developer for a couple of years in the start of my career, and I was thinking that I can achieve the world with the Python. And then I was using computer vision for reading the characters and everything. And then I came with a project and I was doing the same thing, and they have line of credits and contracts. And that is where I got introduced to ABBYY Flexi Capture. And I was like, this is amazing. What I'm doing in Python, taking a lot of time, I can do it very easily here. But then the misconceptions come kicking in, because I was working for the biggest steel manufacturer here in India, Export Logistics. And they were expecting 100% accuracy. They were saying that from a 15 to 20 minutes task, I want to go touchless. I was saying that your contract, 2-pager contract, is taking 20 minutes. Let's reduce it to 30 seconds. From data entry to verification, that is also very selective. But there is a drastic shift, like either 100% or nothing. I've seen this as a big challenge, because IDP is, again, we can use IDP. It's a very powerful tool. But keeping a check on it, keeping the manual review in between, I would say that is also very important, especially when financial documents are there in the scope. That is my recommendation to all the industries.
Yeah, it's very important to measure efficiency more than accuracy, because you never know the quality that these documents are coming in. And like you said, a lot of customers, they expect 100%, and they don't see you just knocked it down from being a 20-minute process to a 30-second process. Even though it wasn't 100%, you knocked off all that time. So it's very important when you're looking at these to measure efficiency rather than just look at accuracy as a factor.
You touched upon some misconceptions and maybe also what is perceived as, let's say, disadvantage, which is not a disadvantage, that there's still some touch points in order to ensure the real, not for process maybe, but for some processes is required. But what is one thing or one kind of resistance do you still encounter with these types of things? And how would you win over a skeptic that says, yeah, I still want to have these straight through processing type of things? Like people now say, oh, an LLM can do all of it and you don't need to touch it at all. Would you agree with that?
Definitely. So now the buzzword in the industry is AI. Everyone is saying Gen AI. Let me do this with Gen AI. They are thinking that it is a magic wand and everything will happen with Gen AI. I would say it is a very powerful platform. It can do a lot of things. But the foundation of Gen AI is not meant for IDP. So if we give the right foundation, if we put an IDP platform in place like ABBYY, and then use Gen AI to complement on top of that to do the work like contextual understanding of that document. The piece where I need contextual understanding, I tell you about one very interesting use case that was about lease agreements. ABBYY can very well extract data from very complex documents, whether it is handwritten, whether it is a big document or segments are there. But when it comes to the contextually understanding the legal terms inside these segments, that is where Gen AI comes in handy, and that is where the real power of Gen AI is getting unlocked. It is trained on human data. That is what I feel. It is trained on the human data what is available on internet. But when I want to have something very specific, very particular, at the same time which I can control, I do not want my results to change every time platform is getting upgraded. I do not want that everything is happening out of a black box. And I do not understand how these results are getting generated, whether I can even control them, whether I can put the right set of rules on top of them. Because at the end of the day, Gen AI is very powerful, but it's not meant to do IDP end to end as a process. So it can IDP platforms can be a very good foundation when we are building a whole intelligent process.
Yeah, I agree with you. And then we're hearing it from customers a lot now. Why get intelligent data capture when I can use an LLM? And they're sometimes, if they have the right use case, they may be right. But we learned pretty quickly that the LLM is not the silver bullet. They're powerful, no doubt. Any other tool, they work best when applied to the right use case. But even better when applied alongside existing tools like ABBYY, Vantage, or FlexiCapture. For example, we still lean on ABBYY for structured, semi-structured, and even unstructured document where accuracy, repeatability, like you mentioned, and field level validation are critical. But we've started using Gen AI in areas where context summarization or interpretation is needed. So like pulling key terms from contracts or generating draft responses from correspondence, summarizing loan narratives, those type of things. And again, it's really exciting when we combine both, because we might use Vantage or FlexiCapture to extract clean, structured data from leasing packages and then pass that into an LLM to generate summaries or calculate exposure or flag anomalies. So that's really where the real magic happens, is when you use Gen AI becomes an intelligent layer on top of a solid IDP foundation.
Absolutely. And Collins, just to add one more point on top of that, what I feel and what I've heard as a feedback as well, people who have used Gen AI or partners who have used Gen AI at the starting, seeing that it will solve my problems, and then they come back. There are two major problems. One is they do not have power on top of the results. They cannot control the results. They can be very accurate, they can be very wrong, there can be a lot of hallucinations. But they're saying that we are not able to control it. And that's not how things work in a business process. If I cannot predict my results and I do not have the power of that, I cannot rely on that process. And the second is the overall platform. We do not offer that kind of platform what IDP platform like ABBYY is offering, where we have a manual review, where we have something to configure, where we have to how we can monitor my throughput, everything end to end, well thought.
So with all of these kind of, I sometimes call it bringing together the best of all the worlds in terms of technology. I'm personally seeing a lot of really great use cases now coming out and customers being very successful after they've gotten over that initial hump of Gen AI hype excitement. And now I've figured out, okay, when we put the right bits and pieces together and take the right methodology, then we can actually be extremely successful in what we're trying to achieve. What I would ask you guys is, when we're talking about the biggest transformation that you've seen that leverages intelligent document processing, would you categorize it more in cost reduction, compliance gains, or customer experience, or actually something more particularly hidden that's more behind the scenes, that not is immediately front and center that people will find out, or maybe that they only found out 6 months after the project had been delivered? Do you have any stories that you guys want to tell on that topic?
As far as biggest transformation or gains, you mentioned cost reduction, compliance gains, customer experience. Honestly, it's all of the above, but the biggest transformation I've seen goes beyond just cost savings or compliance. Those are definitely real and also measurable, but the deeper impact comes from the operational confidence and decision velocity. When you implement IDP and you implement it, you're not just reducing manual effort, you're creating cleaner data, you're creating faster insights, more predictable workflows, and that has a ripple effect. Compliance improves because your documentation is structured and traceable. Customer experience improves because turnaround times shrink, and even operational costs drop because you're no longer relying on people to manually key in data from 50-page lease agreements or mortgage packages. So the real transformation happens when the teams start to trust the data coming from these unstructured and these automated sources, and that unlocks automation in downstream systems.
And Collins, you are very right. When I'm thinking of a use case in my mind, the best use case which I have seen so far, and as Max, you were asking, all the pieces what you have mentioned fit in, right? Because I tell you about a use case. It is manufacturing segment. Food manufacturing, they use a lot of certificate of analysis, because without that certificate, their batch cannot pass and it cannot go to market. So again, when they introduce IDP in that particular segment, because every batch manufactured in every 6 hours have to go through that process and a certificate is issued. Now that certificate needs to be approved by a particular practitioner that, okay, it's saying passed, and then it is going to market. When they introduce IDP to read certificate of analysis, to extract the key values from that, sending it over to a Gen AI platform to see all the values are in right place, whether it is passed or not, and then immediately generating an alert that it is passed. That didn't only save the time for them. I would say batch is now not sitting in warehouse anymore, but they were saying it unlocks a lot of possibilities. Like they can now put the data, streamline data into their ERP system with an ease. It is now the product is more fresh when it is going to market. They do not have to wait in the warehouse. The trucks are moving faster. So as you mentioned about the ripple effect, it is not only the one part. We target the one part, which is the automation, but then we see a lot of possibilities are unlocked, and that might also go to the up to the level of data analytics and the process analytics, because now they have the solid data foundation which they can rely on. Highly accurate, highly reliable.
Yeah, let's go maybe back one more time to the combination of Gen AI and IDP. And you mentioned some of it already, Deepak and Collins as well. But is there any particular new use cases emerge because of LLMs, that things that clients maybe haven't asked 2 years ago, for example, and now they come up more often?
I don't necessarily know if the users are seeking more necessarily the use of an LLM. They just think that the LLM is going to be the solution. So a lot of times customers will understand what these chatbots or large language models can do, and they may play around with it and say, okay, yeah, this is the answer to my solution. And they come to us with a very valid use case. And the LLMs aren't necessarily the answer, but it has stemmed a lot of interest in data capture because of what LLMs can provide and it can easily show.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So a question to that, and I'm wondering what the perspective is from the different parts of the globe right now. Would you say that because of Gen AI, large language models, and the ease of access to that type of AI technology, we're getting more exposure into other capabilities as well that is in the technology stack, such as intelligent document processing? I think we touched on it at the start of the episode, that there are still people that have no idea what it's capable of, what it can do. But from my perspective, and I'll go first, is that because the now very accessible and easy to use AI that we have available to everybody in the world through ChatGPT, Claude, you name it, Grok, it doesn't matter which one. Suddenly people realize that these are real possibilities and these capabilities, this technology actually exists. Do you guys have that same kind of experience that because of it, that's where they go first, but it's actually just a catalyst for them to go explore, okay, what is really possible with AI technology today and how can it solve?
Yeah, that's what I was hinting at earlier, is that with all these different use cases of AI and seeing it on the consumer side, it's building their trust in AI. And they're also starting to test things like throwing an invoice to ChatGPT and say, give me all the header and line data. And sometimes it works for them. And then they think that, hey, can we do this? And that's not the right use case. But yeah, so it is spurring interest, and I think giving people more confidence. ChatGPT is one of them, but another place that I see it is, and this is very outside of our world, but if you go to some of these fast food restaurants, there's an agent taking your order. And no matter how you order it, it's getting it right. I don't think I've ever seen it mess up. And so just that little bit of interaction on the consumer side with AI helps build the confidence on the business side. Hey, I've been doing this for weeks using this AI agent. Why aren't we doing this in our business? So I see that as also being a factor.
Did you just say that there's now agents that will get my name right at Starbucks? Or are they specifically instructed to still get it wrong just to kind of trick me into coming back?
I think they still want to mess with you.
And
Deepak, Marlene, you guys got any experiences on the topic?
Yeah. Recently, there is something buzzing, which is agentic AI. And what I have seen, as rightly mentioned by Collins, Gen AI platforms working as a catalyst for us. There are senior associates, or I would say senior level people in small organizations. They're just trying out Gen AI for the small work. And then they're thinking that I can expand it to IDP. And as I started, it's not a luxury anymore. It's a need of the hour. If they're not using IDP, they are losing on multiple aspects. And that is how the transformation is beginning and now going up to the agentic AI. And with the agentic AI, what I feel is the biggest supporter is IDP, because agents need to learn from the data, and data is being provided by the IDP platforms.
Yeah. Yeah, I also think that the easy accessibility to this type of technology, and this in particular the large language models and the interaction with it, is definitely driving interest for our space, which is positive. And I think the combination of both is even more interesting. But as Collins also mentioned, and Deepak, you as well, is you need to find the right use case, right, for it. And you need to apply the technology, not like selecting the technology and then finding a use case, but the other way around. And I think it's no different with these types of new technologies. You first have to define the problem and then apply the right technology that solves the problem. So it's as easy as that.
I'll tell you a funny story about this, Marlene. And I got this from my wife. My wife is an HR. So she was using ChatGPT by uploading the whole company policy to that and uploading few here and there invoices to see whether they are in policy or not. Otherwise, she cannot go back and check 320 pages policy every time she need to approve some kind of invoice which is out of the line. And that is how she pitched her this particular thing to their boss, that this is how it is helping me. I'm just uploading the policy, and that is how I get to know whether this kind of invoice I can approve or not, whether this kind of PO I can approve or not. And now that is taking some traction, because now they are already looking into IDP space and agentic AI space to process their invoices, POs, at the same time using the policy at the back end. And in all these three framework, if you see, IDP is required to extract the reliable and accurate data. At the same time, LLM is helping us to take the right decisions and saving a lot of time and stress for my life.
Yeah, if we would like to give newcomers in this space some advice, is there anything like a mistake you see that happened with first IDP adopters that you want them to avoid? Or where to start, basically? What's your advice on how to approach it, and as a business, obviously?
Yeah, and not to promote ABBYY and everything, but the first thing I always tell people is to start with ABBYY University. It's an incredible resource, honestly, one of the best onboarding experiences I've seen in the industry that not only shows you about the ABBYY product, but teaches you about intelligent document processing in general. Peter and his team have done a phenomenal job putting together meaningful, hands-on content that makes it easy to get up to speed with ABBYY and intelligent document processing. I believe that they've delivered over 18,000 certifications, and that number speaks for itself. I'd say 5-6 years ago, it was hard to find ABBYY experts, and through this university, I think now that they're pretty common and makes it very easy to learn. And then once you get a handle on the product, whether you use ABBYY or not, don't wait for the perfect project. Just start building. Even if you're just learning for fun, the more you experiment, the faster you'll start to understand how powerful IDP is and how quickly you can build out some of these use cases. So, that's some of my advice.
That's actually really great advice. And I just want to throw in there before Deepak jumps on to what he thinks people should do first and what they should keep in mind is that the ABBYY University is actually open to everybody. So if you listen to this episode and afterwards you're like, hey, I want to actually dig into this and figure out how I can leverage it, you can go to university.abby.com and learn all about it. Sorry, Deepak, I cut you off there for a second, but I thought that was an important message to share.
Definitely not, Max. I'm still learning from the best. And what I was about to say is not from me. The original is from Max. When I heard Max a couple of years back saying that purpose-built AI. So that changed a little perspective of mine because everyone is now chasing AI and automation. But what I would advise is go for the purpose. Go for the use case, what you have, and see what technology fits in. And then go for the AI. And the second one is from my side, which I have used, and Colin, you have also mentioned. We should always start with a small use case and see what are the outcomes I'm getting. It will definitely scale up in the future, but we should not target the whole world in one go. Start small and then scale up smart. These are the two advices which I would like to give.
And then don't be afraid to lean into the community. The ABBYY ecosystem and intelligent document processing ecosystem is full of smart people who love to collaborate, love to talk, love to tell stories, and are willing to share their ideas and help out. Don't be afraid to reach out to people. They're usually pretty responsive.
Awesome. So what is your prediction for the future of IDP? Where is this heading?
Yeah, I think the opportunities are huge. I think it's going to be combining LLMs with IDP. So you're no longer limited to just extracting data. You can now understand the context, you can generate summaries, you can extract the intent, and even make sense of loosely structured narrative or content that may not even contain the full picture. This type of stuff will unlock use cases that were previously too complex, and I think it's going to be, the future is going to be combining the two. And we've seen this firsthand. LLMs have allowed us to classify massive volumes of documents and understand the sentiment and narrative behind them. But as far as extraction, that's where the IDP platforms truly shine.
Yeah, I would fully agree with that. And if I would have to go a little bit further down the crystal ball, that definitely is step one. But then from that point on, I think once organizations truly get all of the benefits from intelligent document processing, that will turn into them having access to structured data that is available to them to do, like Deepak already mentioned, decisioning processes, and not just from an assistive perspective. Right now, we're seeing a lot of proof of concepts and deployments of the type of assistive AI that's really trying to help operators be faster, be better. But I think for me, the full distance crystal ball perspective is definitely that we'll have full-on organizations, enterprises that are running fully automatically with almost little to no people besides giving instructions and providing directives on what needs to happen. And I think that's actually closer than all of us realize, because just back in, if I'm not mistaken, 2017, we had the first edition of GPT-1 that nobody heard or cared about. And only a few years later, everybody's talking about it in every single household. So it can change overnight. And I think at some point it will, but it's going to be extremely exciting.
Yeah, especially for these agentic or these autonomous automation scenarios, it will play definitely a role. Yeah, so all these future scenarios still contain a part of, or parts of it are IDP still, or unlocking the value of unstructured content and data and making it accessible to companies. And I think this is definitely one key takeaway here.
Yeah, and IDP is going to be prior to these LLMs and training of these models. The customers only wanted the data that they were going to be using downstream, but now with the use of these large language models, they want every bit of data, all the data, complete OCR, extracted text, different extracted fields. That way they can feed this machine learning, this AI, and make it smarter. So I see people quite commonly using IDP to feed these models.
Deepak, do you also have a future scenario that you want to paint for us for IDP?
Definitely, Marlene. See, I'm not a tarot card reader, but what I see is upward trend from this point onward for IDP, because there is some misconception that LLM will replace IDP, but I think otherwise. Because what I have seen is the outcomes now, small organization, medium organizations moving towards IDP, and they are right now recognizing the need of the hour, that these document centric process, how I can turn them to an asset. And as Max mentioned earlier, that it still wows a lot of partners and the customers that, oh, this is what we can still do with IDP. So a major market segment is still not aware of the full capabilities of IDP. That's why this is what my prediction is, that it will grow a lot in the near future.
Fully agree. Thank you guys again, Deepak, Collins, for all of the insights. It was a very wonderful conversation to have with you guys, and I look forward to catching up again in a couple of years to see where our crystal ball predictions took us and see maybe we can draw a lottery on who's right, but we'll have to find that out. But I think the main takeaway for today is that intelligent document processing is actually an incredibly cool technology. It's already changed a lot in a lot of different things that touch everybody's life every single day, and whenever you're working with documents with organizations. And these real world implementations will continue to move forward, and more complex use cases will become solved now that the technology can take this next step in its evolution.
Yeah, thank you both for being here, and see you next time.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Have a great day.
So much.
Thank
It
you.
was